Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3.
You're echoing, Norma.
Can they? She can hear it? Can you hear me? Sounds like it's going through the room.
I can hear you, Norma, but you're echoing.
Oh, they can hear us.
Annabelle, can you check that we can hear Melissa speak?
Melissa, it's me, Annabelle. I'm talking to you through the chamber. Can you say something to us so we know that we can hear you? There's people. I don't know if she can hear me. I'm getting feedback, aren't we?
Testing.
Check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. No. Check 1, 2, 3. Melissa, can you hear me? Donna, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You're kind of faint and still a little bit of an echo.
I'll even take the Air Force special. Did you hear that?
Okay.
Oh, the echo kind of went away.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Is that better?
Yes. I hear you really well, Annabelle.
Thank you.
Good evening. The regular City Council LRA board meetings are now in session. Today is Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. It is 6 p.m. This in-person and virtual hybrid meeting will be held in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order N-2920 as amended by Order N-0821 regarding the open meetings requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act, the Federal Americans with Disability Act, and also with the June 15th, 2021 reopening orders and the recent California Department of Public Health COVID guidance to ensure the public has continued access to meetings. Refer to the last page of the agenda for participation information. If you all will please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'd like to introduce to you our new senior pastor at the Riverbank Assembly of God Church, Randy Allen Richardson. Randy? He's going to be with us, and he's going to help me throughout the year to make sure I don't get too bogged down in invocations, okay? I'd like to take a moment of silence here, please, just for those veterans that we have and for those American citizens that's in Afghanistan, and just think about the military that we're going to have to send over, and just take a moment to think about and pray for those that's going to be there. Thank you. Heavenly Father, in the scriptures you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, today I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I am asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amidst the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Riverbank. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen. God bless each one of you.
Amen. Amen. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Council Authority Member District 2, Rachel Hernandez. Here. Council Authority Member District 3, Cal Campbell.
Here.
Council Authority Member District 4, Darlene Barbara Martinez. Here. Vice Mayor Chair Luis Uribe.
Here.
Mayor Chair Richard D. O'Brien.
Here. There will be no agenda changes. Conflict of interest. Any council, authority member, or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Seeing none, we move to public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and with the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. Do we have any public comment? Seeing no public comment, are there any public comments from via Zoom?
There is no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments for this section.
Thank you. Move to the consent calendar consisting of items 7.1, waive reading, 7.2, approval of June 8th, 2021 City Council and LRA Board minutes, item 7.3, approval of June 22nd, 2021, City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority Board minutes. Item 7.4, resolution authorizing city manager to execute a cooperative funding agreement for the pavement management program between the Stanislaus Council of Governments, Stanislaus County, cities of Ceres, Houston, Modesto, Newman, Oakdale, Patterson, Turlock, Waterford, and Riverbank. Item 7.5, award bid for the pavement restoration and valley gutter project to Sinclair Engineering, General Engineering Construction, Inc., and authorize execution of future change order. Item 7.6, reject bid for the Riverbank Police Fence and Gate Project from Golden Bay Fence Plus Ironworks, Inc., and authorize staff to rebid the project. Is there anyone wishing to pull any of the consent items? Do we have anyone from the public wishing to pull any of these items? Annabelle, do we have any on Zoom?
Mayor, there is no one wishing to pull anything.
Okay. I bring it to the council for consideration.
I'll make a motion we approve the consent calendar as stated.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve and a second.
Council Authority members Barbara Martinez. Yes. Campbell.
Yes.
Hernandez. Yes. Vice Mayor Chair Uribe.
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.1, second reading by title only of proposed ordinance number 2021-003, approving a First Amendment to the development agreement by and between the City of Riverbank and MWG Holdings Group doing business as Perfect Union.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This is a second reading of the updated development agreement with our dispensary that's just a couple blocks down. We discussed the terms and conditions at the last regularly scheduled council meeting of the changes to their development agreement, and those were concurred upon by the council, and so I'd be happy to answer any questions if you'd like. Otherwise, the item remains unchanged.
Are there any additional questions or comments from the council? Is there any comments from the public on this item?
Mayor, there is no one wishing to speak, and there were no written comments received for this item.
Thank you. I bring it back to item 8.1 for consideration.
I'll make a motion to approve item 8.1.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve by the Vice Mayor, a second by Councilmember Hernandez. Roll call, please.
Council members Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Uribe.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.2, second reading by title only of proposed ordinance number 2021-004, amending Title 11 Business Regulation by adding new Chapter 127, Mobile Food Vending Program, to the City of Riverbank's Municipal Code of Ordinances.
Thank you, Mayor. Similarly, this is a second reading. There have been no changes to the ordinance. This simply puts into permanency the pilot program we had that's been very successful, and so if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Are there any questions from the council? Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Mayor, there is no one wishing to speak on Zoom, and we did not receive any written comments for this item.
Thank you. I bring it back. Again, I want to thank Councilmember Barbara Martinez for her help spearheading this. And do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept item 8.2 as so stated.
I second.
We have a motion to approve item 8.2 by Councilmember Campbell and a second by Councilmember Barbara Martinez. Roll call, please.
Council members Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Uribe.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 9, public hearing on LRA item 9.1, a resolution of the Local Redevelopment Authority Board of the City of Riverbank approving the annual budget for fiscal year 21 to 22.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Melissa Holdaway from the Riverbank LRA is going to provide the report. I will state that this item will return to you in short order, depending on decisions that are made under item 10 this evening, because it'll change the expenditures as well as the revenues significantly. But for the time being, this allows us to continue to keep bills paid and the operation running out there. And so we'll go to Melissa.
Good evening, Chair and Authority members. I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm agreeing. I'm just getting ready to start. Tonight I'm presenting the fiscal year 21-22 LRA operating budget for your consideration and adoption. The LRA budget fund, Fund 197, is our leasehold. This fund accounts for site revenue, the rents, utility payments, DOD caretaker, and miscellaneous, and expenditures, the operations and maintenance, utility, infrastructure improvements, facility management contract, and security. It also covers our grant match. Fund 198 is our grants, which is housing our Office and Economic Adjustment grant. That covers personnel costs, administrative costs, and professional services. Traditionally has been at 90% with our match at 10%. And lastly, our Fund 199, the ESCA, Environmental Services Cooperative Agreement. This fund covers personnel and administrative costs associated with the project, contracts associated with the remediation project, and disposal. All revenue generated on the site must be reinvested into the site, and funds are non-discretionary. Anticipated changes to the LRA budget. Army will continue to pay a portion of site operations and maintenance until transfer. This revenue stream will transfer to the master developer once executed. ESCA number 2, work completed by fiscal year end 21-22. This may slip with addressing the short and long-term BMP monitoring currently being negotiated between Cal EPA, Army, and the LRA. OEA to provide funding to the authority through June 2022 on our current grant. Loss of OEA funding once transfer takes place, and the LRA loss of O&M once the MDA is executed, as this funding will transfer to them. A snapshot of the current budget: estimated revenues at $3.6 million, estimated expenditures at $3.3 million, with a balance of the funds of $332,280 to cover the LRA structural deficit. Like Sean said, this budget will change significantly once the MDA is executed, as a large portion of the revenue and expenditures will transfer to them. And at that time, I will be preparing a revised budget to bring forth. So at this time, it's recommended that the LRA board adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 21-22 LRA operating budget. Any questions or comments?
Thank you. Before I open it up for a public hearing, are there any questions from the council to Melissa? Seeing none, I open the public comment, public hearing. Do we have any public comment?
There is no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments on this item.
Thank you. I close the public hearing. I bring it back to the council for comments or consideration.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget for the LRA, operating LRA.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve item 9.1 by Councilmember Barbara Martinez and a second by the Vice Mayor. Roll call, please.
Authority members: Barbara.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hernandez. Yes. Vice Chair Uribe.
Yes.
Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. All right. I am going to not change the agenda, but I want to combine a couple of items, have it go into one. That is item 10.1, 2, and 3, and I'll read the titles of those only. Item 10.1, a resolution of the City of Riverbank City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority approving a lease deposition and development agreement with the Metis Inc. for certain parcels of real property located in Riverbank Industrial Complex. Riverbank Industrial Complex lease disposition and development agreement parcels A and stormwater parcels APN 062-031-005, portions and APN 062-031-010. For item 10.2, a resolution of the Riverbank City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority approving a purchase and sale agreement with Ametis Inc. for certain parcels of real properties located in Riverbank Industrial Complex. Riverbank Industrial Complex purchase and sale agreement for parcels Bravo, APN 062-031-007, 062-031-11. City Council LRA item 10.3, Riverbank Industrial Complex report on the status of acquisitions of parcels 2 and 2A from the Army and their simultaneous resale to Ametis Properties Riverbank, Inc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We are thrilled to be here tonight after 3.5 years and hundreds of hours, probably thousands of hours of work on coordinating this moment. So we've kept the presentation pretty high level, and because of some of the technological challenges we have on streaming as well as having people in person, you'll see that the PowerPoint is going to be I put it together so it's a lot less sophisticated than most of the staff that work here. But I think what I'm going to do is start with the next slide, which just so that everybody can be on the same page, you'll see here in a moment the site map. So as we talk about these parcels this evening, Parcel A is the main base, which is the 77 acres right in the middle. All of the buildings are on it. That is the first item on the agenda for discussion. The second item is Parcel B, which is 24.5 acres roughly to the north on this map. It looks like it's to the west. And that is property that the city now owns from the Army. And the final item is Parcels 2 and 2A, which are in the middle of those two. And those are not yet owned by the city, but the Army has agreed to sell those to you, and I'll get into that in a moment. So my role this evening, and we can go to the next slide, is I'm going to step through some of the history of the site so that everybody can be sort of aware of how we got here today, and then eventually I'm going to move it over to our BRAC counsel, George Schlossberg, who is with us from Washington, D.C., and has worked on this project for a number of years, and then finally to Barbara Brenner with Churchill White, who has worked on some of the environmental components to the project. So starting, just so everybody can be on the same page about some of the history, the industrial complex was opened 78 years ago in 1943 as an aluminum reduction plant for military supplies during World War II. In 1952, Norris Thermidor Corporation contracted with the U.S. Army to produce ammunition supplies for the military on the site. And at the height of production at one time, it had almost 3,500 individuals employed throughout the area. In the 90s, as demand and production slowed, Army leased areas of the site to private tenants. And in 2005, the site was chosen for closure under the base realignment and closure process that's dictated by the federal and military branches. The production of munitions was then subsequently moved to Rock Island, Illinois, and it became a totally leased property. In anticipation of the closure, the Riverbank City Council created the Riverbank Local Redevelopment Authority to implement a reuse and economic development strategy for the site. So at the time, the council had a pretty forward-thinking concept of how can we use this depreciating asset to create jobs locally and not let it just be shuttered. In 2007 and 2008, the city finished a detailed reuse plan, and in 2009, the city submitted to the Army a request for a no-cost economic development conveyance of the property. That request was approved by the Department of the Army in 2011 for both Parcels A and Parcel B. Since that time, the city has operated the plant under a sublease with the Army, taking control of leasing, environmental cleanup, and the development of an LRA-specific plan, an environmental impact report with the vision of becoming a hub for a variety of green-type businesses focused on recycling and sustainable energy solutions. The plant has been home over the years to an average of roughly 40 small, medium, and large-scale businesses over that time. In 2017, the city succeeded in receiving the first of the no-cost economic development conveyances and that was Parcel B from the Army. Parcel A is in the process of early transfer with an estimated completion date of mid to late 2022. In late 2017, the council made the policy decision that long-term city management of the facility would not be feasible. The decision primarily related to the strategy that partnership with the private sector would give the property the best chance of long-term economic development success. An RFP was issued for the second time since assuming responsibilities at the plant in late 2017, and after an extensive review process, Ametis was chosen as the top candidate. Since that time, and this would have been essentially early to mid 2018, staff and legal counsel have been involved in a lengthy and very complicated negotiation to the draft documents for consideration this evening. Ametis Incorporated is a company that focuses on renewable fuels and biochemicals. Ametis' core focus is on the replacement of petroleum fuels with first-generation ethanol, biodiesel, and other renewable fuels. Ametis currently operates a large-scale ethanol production facility in Keys, just off Highway 99, which produces approximately 60 million gallons of ethanol per year. Ametis Incorporated is a publicly traded stock on the NASDAQ, and if you'd like to look them up, their symbol is AMTX. Ametis initially became interested in the Riverbank Industrial Complex under a common lease arrangement, similar in nature to many of the businesses currently leasing at the facility, and had in mind a future production facility. As the project has taken shape, Ametis became interested as a possible candidate to manage the entire complex. After going through the RFP process and becoming the top-ranked respondent, more details regarding the specifics of the planned facility have been developed. Ametis has been successful in achieving a $125 million loan guarantee from the United States Department of Agriculture, the 9003 Biorefinery Assistance Program, a $12 million California state tax waiver, and a $5 million California Energy Commission grant, and probably a number of other grants that Eric can tell you about later that have happened since that time. A federal job study for the project and ongoing operations have calculated that essentially roughly 2014 direct and indirect jobs will be created as a result of the development of the plant. Separately from the plant, Ametis has also teamed up with local developer Kerry Pope with plans for the expansion of the Riverbank Industrial Complex. The plans include development of vacant portions of the site, such as Parcel B, as well as Parcels 2 and 2A. Additionally, Ametis has pledged to take over responsibility for management of the existing developed areas of the Riverbank Industrial Complex. This includes ongoing leasing responsibilities, security, tenant management, maintenance, etc. The city will still have some minor involvement in on-site related to the Army matters and on-site Army-funded environmental cleanup that's ongoing, although the vast majority of that has been completed to date. So that brings us to this evening. This project, from staff's perspective, has significant potential to create industrial job center in Riverbank and represents a job center not only for Riverbank but for the region as well. I'm going to pass it over to George Schlossberg now, who's going to walk the council through the specifics of the agreements that are up for consideration this evening, and then after that we'll go to Barbara to address CEQA as well as surplus land considerations that we've been working through. So we can go to George now, and I think you go to the next slide. You there, George?
Here, I think I'm the host has cut off my camera, but good evening. It is my pleasure to be here tonight. I've had the opportunity to address the council previously of several occasions as this deal has unfolded. This is a very complex real estate transaction. The entirety of the transaction involves both a lease, a purchase, and it involves acquisition of property both by the LRA and by the city, and I will outline them now. When the city prepared its reuse plan, submitted its EDC application, and executed an EDC agreement with the Army, the basic transaction and deal that the city struck with the United States was that the United States would transfer the EDC property, that is parcel A, parcel B, and the stormwater parcel, to the city at no financial cost, and the city's promise was to redevelop that property for job generation purposes in accordance with the reuse plan. Since that time, the United States has been able to transfer some portion of the former Riverbank Army Ammunition Plant, parcel B, in fee by quitclaim deed to the city. The U.S. government, the Army, is obligated to convey the rest of the EDC parcels, that would be parcel A and the stormwater parcel, at such time as the environmental remediation process has been completed. Okay, my video is now working. We have separated the transaction into two real estate documents that are before you tonight for review and approval. One is the purchase and sales agreement to sell parcel B to Ametis, and the other is for a lease of parcel A and then an option for Ametis to purchase that property. And I'll now go through the financial implications of each of those. As indicated in the staff report, and there are full numbers in the staff report. Let me just pull that up. There we go. For parcel A, there will be a lease that will have an effective date 60 days after the time that you execute the parcel A lease disposition agreement. 15 days, however, after the effective date, the city will receive $100,000, and then in 18 equal monthly installments, $450,000 divided over that 18 equal monthly installments. And then it will be a 15-year lease, and starting at the first anniversary, it will be a payment of $145,000 per year to the city. It is intended, and it is hoped, that Ametis will construct its ethanol plant within this period of time, and if Ametis does so within the first 10 years, the rent will remain the same. If starting year 11, the plant is not up and running or has substantially been commenced, the rent for the city will increase at $50,000 a year for a total increase at the end of the lease term of $250,000. At the end of the 15-year lease, Ametis will be in a position to exercise the option to purchase parcel A, and the purchase price at that point of the operating plant will be $8.8 million. I would note that parcel A is subject to a master lease from the Army. This lease, we are in the third iteration of this lease. It commenced in 2010. The most recent lease enactment was in 2016. And Ametis's, the city's rights to the property are subject to that master lease. And of course, Ametis's sublease, the city's sublease to Ametis, will be subject to that master lease until such time as the Army conveys the property to the city, at which case the Ametis lease will become a prime lease. Could we go to the next slide, please? As I've indicated, Parcel B has already been conveyed by the United States to the city. We are now in a position to convey Parcel B to Ametis. There is a purchase and sales agreement before you today for your consideration. If executed, we would hope to consummate the closing on Parcel B within 90 days. The purchase price for Parcel B is $1.2 million. Since Parcel B is part of the EDC agreement, as well as Parcel A and the stormwater parcel, the development on the site must comply with the LRA specific plan, and I know that Barbara Brenna will be discussing that with you as well. Could we go to the next slide? Now, Parcel 2 and 2A are very different from the rest of the transactions that we have discussed. Parcel 2 and 2A will not be acquired by the LRA, by the city acting as the LRA. It will be acquired directly by the city. And that is because it was not part of the EDC agreement at no cost. An economic development conveyance agreement is only available to a local redevelopment authority. At the time that we entered into our agreement with the Army, it was determined which properties would be conveyed to the city at no cost and which properties would be reserved by the Army for sale at fair market value to the public. Since that time, in our discussions with Ametis, it was determined that Parcels 2 and 2A were needed for the overall industrial development of the Riverbank Army Ammunition Plant, the Riverbank Industrial Complex. Accordingly, we, the city, approached the Army and asked to acquire Parcels 2 and 2A at their fair market value on a sole source basis through a different statutory mechanism called a negotiated sale. The Army agreed to do so with the understanding that we would, at the same time we acquired it from the Army, we would convey these two parcels to Ametis so that they could consolidate the properties, and that we would just charge an additional $50,000 to cover all of the legal costs, administrative costs of pursuing this on behalf of Ametis. We are not in a position to acquire Parcel 2 or 2A now. The Army is not in a position to sell Parcel 2 or 2A to the city, and that's why there is no agreement or document for you to approve tonight. This is just an update, the city staff report to you to explain how Parcel 2 and 2A will fit into the ultimate purchase, development, and transfer to Ametis. Whatever the purchase price negotiated with on these parcels will be, that is the price that Ametis will pay, plus the administrative cost. That completes my discussion on the deal points for A, B, stormwater, and 2 and 2A. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Before we move on, does the council have any questions for George or for the city manager? We have much more to go through, but not at the moment. Okay, Sean?
Okay, we're now going to go to Barbara, who is going to discuss a little bit of the CEQA language that's in the report, as well as her office has helped handle the California Surplus Land Act compliance that California agencies have to go through when they are selling public land. So I'm going to move it over to Barbara now. You there, Barbara?
Sorry,
Oh, there you go.
I was on mute. Sorry about that. I was indicating, thank you, Sean, for the introduction, and just letting you know that this pretty short version, we've been able to keep this project within the LRA specific plan EIR parameters and the existing zoning and land use specifications for this particular property. So we were able to develop a project description that keeps us within those parameters and has avoided any issues with regard to CEQA and the overall analysis that is usually gone through for these types of projects. That said, there will still be ongoing information coming from Ametis as far as how they're going to develop the project. And going forward, there will be continued communications and assurance that we comply with the existing zoning and CEQA laws. If there's something that changes, of course, the city will have an opportunity to review that and ensure that there's compliance with the local state and land use laws. We also were able to comply with the Surplus Land Act statutes that have been updated recently. We've documented all the actions that were needed to take in order to ensure compliance with the Surplus Land Act, and we'll be filing basically a letter report to them shortly, and don't anticipate any issues in that regard as well. So right now, it's been a lot of time and years, especially with staff and other folks in my office, to come to this point, and we're happy to present this to the City Council and be able to take the next step with this extremely significant project. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from the council?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, there's just a little bit more, and then we can open up for questions and comments. There are 4 bullets up here on the screen that I'd like to make sure are included should council decide to approve this agreement, that these are part of the motion, because they are procedural and minor issues that I want to make sure we don't have to return to obtain approval for. And those are the signing of these documents, that be for Parcel A and for Parcel B. Some of these apply only to A and some to B, but in general should occur after Army concurrence with the sublease, which is in review with the Army currently. Should occur after the Surplus Land Act compliance has been achieved, and that is nearly complete, as Barbara mentioned. The mayor should be the signing authority on this document. Per our municipal code, land-related matters, the mayor is typically the signatory versus myself. And we would also request that council agree to minor non-substantive revisions that are agreed to by the city attorney or authorized by council in advance, just in case there are little changes to the final document with regard to the many exhibits that are included. Finally, I'd like to just say one last thing, and then I know representatives for Ametis are here this evening to speak as well, but I just wanted to thank staff, not only our present staff, but past staff who have worked on this, for their tireless efforts in moving this project forward. Our attorneys, Barbara Brenner and George Schlossberg, for their tenacity in seeing this to completion. And I'd also like to thank the Ametis team, including Eric McAfee, Andy Foster, Jeff Welch, Megan Hopkins, Carrie Pope, and Ametis' attorney, Mike Rocket, who I know is on the Zoom this evening. We wouldn't be here today without the excellent relationships we've established with those folks, as well as our partners at the U.S. Army and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. But most of all, I'd like to thank the City Council for their leadership and consistency in pushing this major project forward. Even after we hit brick walls here and there, you never wavered and you continued to push us forward. So we're excited to have you consider this and vote on it, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have. And like I said, Eric McAfee from Ametis is here this evening as well. I'm sure he would like to say something.
Thank you very much. It's not a final for the council. Any additionals before I bring it, Mr. McAfee up?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. I'd like to just go back when we first started talking about the RRC, and I was part of a citizen advisory committee, and Carrie Pope remembers this too. And we had dreams, we had hopes of what we wanted the RRC to turn into, and I'm just amazed that we've come this far, because it just seemed like we would never get there. We knew that we wanted to have someone to, to be, not the city to be in charge of, but just what Ametis is planning on doing, to be a master developer for the property and so forth. But I'm just pleased that we've gotten this far. So I just want to say thank you for the efforts, and thank you for my fellow council members for working on this too, and the staff. Thank you.
So I don't have any issues with the requested amendments. The terms look great. I just it's probably going to sound a little cheesy, but I'd like a round of applause to Sean's comment. I mean, 3.5 years of hard work from the staff and everybody that's been involved. So I'd like to just give him a round of applause for that. I'm just really excited about what's to come. It's really going to transform the area. The green jobs impact both direct and indirectly. Just think about like the good paying jobs that potentially are coming here and stuff. If approved by council. Just one interesting tidbit. When I was reading the agenda, the environmental benefits to the region. Like, I had no idea how bad the air quality was in this region. We were ranked the worst, and currently we're ranked in the top 3 worst in the entire United States. So just kind of, and then think about what we're trying to do and change all that for the region, not just for the city, but for the region. So thank you.
I'd like just a couple of comments also. I've been with this project just since about the beginning, and one nice thing that's going to be is the public's finally going to see something happen out there, because they've riddled us with this. When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And we've hit brick walls constantly, but as the mayor stated, we kept getting by, and that's good. And I think this is going to be something technology-wise that's going to be unique to our side of the county, and this is going to be a first step, and this development's going to be a good business park and do a lot to help us have a better income and jobs on this side of the county. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved in it, because it was a lot of hard work. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. McAfee, if you will, please.
I'm wearing my hard hat because I didn't know what to expect today. I would invite one of you to thank Mayor O'Brien and City Manager John Scully. This project was made possible because of their enthusiasm and their support over the last 4 years that we've together. George and Barbara and others who worked on it have been faithful in their service. But I got to tell you about the energy and leadership of Mayor O'Brien and John Scully. Our team is very excited. We've invested over $10 million of our company's cash before today, so I hope this goes well. With, quite frankly, our partnership we have in the city, led by those team members, and our entire team, including my lawyers, accountants, and everybody else, have been working together with the idea that the many obstacles that have been thrown up by various unaffiliated parties that are not the city and not our company could be overcome and work together. And that's been achieved, and I want to thank each one of the council members for, frankly, setting a culture that enabled them to be enthusiastic and supporters. And I would take it back to you for the project, because it's not only going to create over 2,000 jobs in the area, but frankly, adopt some new technologies and the clean energy revolution from Riverbank. Very excited about the result. Thank you for the opportunity, and we
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Pope, would you like to say something? I know you're a man of few words.
Thank you. And I've been involved from the beginning as well. And when you get into a project like this, and I've been involved in many, this has probably been one of the most complicated projects I've been involved in. So it's exciting to be where we're at today. I couldn't be more thrilled about what we've been able to do even before this, because before we started leasing
some of the project, it was only at about 30% leased, and right now we stand at about 75 to 80% leased. So even before we get moving on this exciting project with Aemetis, we're already well on our way. So thank you, and you know that I will be here to answer any questions that you have in the future. So we look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Just on note, the California has passed zero burning of agricultural waste starting 1 September this year. So we need your plant earlier just to help the farmers out. To get rid of the waste, their options are to have it composted or chipped, and all of that is diesel engines. Yes, we have bad air, but in 1985, today, we have decreased pollutants by over 90%. And in the next 10 years, we're expecting another reduction of the remaining 10%, 90% of that. So we'll be on our way. And with our clean energy as we're going forward, we should be in the forefront of how it's done in this region, with Riverbank in the lead. So we still have a lot of business left to do. I'm going to now open it to the public for comments on each one of these items that are before us. Is there any public statement?
Good evening. My name is Eric Nims. I'm an attorney with New Miller and Beardsley. We represent Kiva Energy. Kiva Energy is a tenant currently at the site. Our office submitted to you, I believe, a timely letter. It should be in your board packet. If the council has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. We do have it, and we understand the concerns. As it is part of the LRA, it's not directly related to our agreement with Aemetis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Annabelle, do we have any?
Mayor, there is no one on Zoom wishing to speak, and like it was said, we did receive the attorney Eric Nim's letter from New Miller and Beardsley, which was distributed to each member of the City Council via email at 2:44 p.m. today, and will be part of the record.
Thank you. I'm going to bring it back to the council for consideration. And under new items, item 10.1, a resolution of the Riverbank City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority approving a lease disposition and development agreement with Aemetis Inc. for certain parcels of real property located in the Riverbank Industrial Complex. Riverbank Industrial Complex, lease disposition, and development agreement for the parcels A, stormwater parcels, as mentioned before. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item 10.1.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by the Vice Mayor and a second by Councilmember Campbell. Roll call, please.
Council Authority members Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chair Uribe.
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 10.2, a resolution of the Riverbank City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority approving a purchase and sale agreement with Aemetis Inc. for certain parcels of real property located in the Riverbank Industrial Complex. Riverbank Industrial Complex purchase and sale agreement for parcels B and with the appropriate annotation.
I make a motion we approve item 10.2.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barbara Martinez and Vice Mayor for a second. Roll call, please.
Council Authority members Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chair Uribe.
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
On item 10.3, this is to accept the report of Riverbank Industrial Complex report on the status of the acquisition of parcels 2 and 2A from the Army and their simultaneous resale to Aemetis Property, Riverbank, Inc.
I'll make a motion that we accept the item as so stated.
I will second.
Do we roll call on this one too?
Yes, please.
Okay. We have a motion to accept item 10.3 by Councilmember Campbell and a second by Councilmember Hernandez. Roll call, please.
Council Authority members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hernandez. Yes. Vice Chair Odibe,
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you all. And before we move on, I'd like to thank the U.S. Army for their legal, environmental, and transfer guidance and placing their trust in Riverbank for the reuse of the property for economic development and job creation. From the past experts to the current leadership under Secretary Ray Hauser, we are encouraged by their endorsement of this partnership. We look forward to the day we convey the property. I've often stated that the city of Riverbank should not be in the business of running the industrial complex. Finding the right entity to take over that task and then come up with a deal that is good for all was at times very painful, but highly rewarding. To be honest, this is really a tremendous opportunity for Riverbank to have Ametis take over the industrial complex, and we're truly grateful to form this partnership. There's nothing like this effort locally, and this project has regional significance. I personally thank Mr. Eric McAfee for his trust in Riverbank and allowing his team the latitude to come to such an arrangement which we have reviewed tonight. We're very much overwhelmed as well as very grateful to have you as our business partner. We look forward to working with Kerry Pope. In addition to Ametis, he's part of the team. To the legal teams that put this contract together and for the understanding the right terminology for the agreement and taking seriously the concerns of all sides. To the Riverbank staff, especially Mr. Sean Scully, for the thousands of hours of effort that made this agreement possible, and to the City Council for your endurance and intelligence for this conclusion. And I want to thank all of you who had anything to do with it, Opportunity Stanislaus and others. Again, this is significant. And we move forward. Presentation by Jilton Solid Waste on SB 1383 and discussion and direction. This is item 10.1.
Thank you, Mayor. As everybody files out, and I don't blame you.
Can we take a quick recess? Eric, can we take a quick recess? We're going to get a picture of you. Come on. Come on, all council going down there. No, keep your hard hat on. Great comments about me. Heck, I didn't know I did. Where do you want to go? Okay, this is, oh, yeah.
That's okay. No, can we move this way a little bit?
I'll do anything you tell me. You have to.
Okay. I don't like it. Our master plan. Because you're a little too out. Let's move you in here. Let's move you in here.
Carrie, get closer to me. I do not buy it.
Better.
And I was in the Navy.
And then you look like this. Okay, up here. 1, 2, 3. Like you're happy?
John's not smiling.
I know, he's not.
why I was worried.
This meeting is now reconvened, and we're going to start off with 10.4 presentation by Jilton Solid Waste on SB 1383 and discussion and direction.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We have Tracy Norris as well as the whole Jilton crew. We have Richard, Bob, Savannah. There are probably more. Am I missing? Raquel, apologize. All here tonight from Jilton. We've been, as you know, Jilton was here months ago and had some discussion about compliance with SB 1383. It's not a little bill, and it really changes the nature of how our solid waste is going to be processed. And so Jilton took the challenge and have, in my opinion, really provided a lot of leadership, not just for Riverbank, but for the region on how we can address this matter. It may not have been the best business decision for Jilton, but they certainly could have said, you figure it out. We just take your waste. You figure out how to comply with it. But they didn't do that. They came up with a solution that we feel is fair and equitable and actually provides a better service in the long run for our constituents. So Tracy's going to step you through some of that, and then we're going to get to the big question, which is what's the number? And then we can discuss, and there's some direction that I'll come back to after her presentation.
Yeah, I was hoping to have that hard hat when we got to that part, but he left. Anyway, on behalf of Jilton Solid Waste, I want to thank the council for the opportunity to talk with you about what we believe the best path to compliance is for the city of Riverbank, as well as our other jurisdictions on eating this elephant one bite at a time called SB 1383, which is an unfunded state mandate. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. I would like to talk to you about what Jilton believes is a long-term sustainable solution, talk to you a little bit about our research, get into what your new collection service rates will be, talk about how excited we are to continue our partnership as we're meeting SB 1383, and then answer any questions that you might have. Next slide, please. So really just want to start off and talk about where I left off in March when we were here before you then, or actually I think we were via Zoom. But anyway, Jilton Solid Waste has taken a thoughtful strategic approach to find a long-term sustainable solution to SB 1383. We strongly believe in the two-cart system that we currently have, as well as converting our transfer station into a high diversion material recovery facility at our McClure Road property, as well as reactivating our permits in place, but restarting our composting facility to provide you capacity that way. We do strongly believe in educating our businesses and our residents, but as the video showed when we were here previously, in order to achieve the diversion levels that the state is putting on you all to achieve, we really believe in mechanical separation of materials to do that, and in doing so, our jurisdictions will be able to meet SB 1383. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing weekly for my team of 12 since December at Jilton has been meeting weekly to discuss SB 1383 and all the various aspects with a backdrop of how can we continue the level of service that we've given our jurisdictions over the years while helping them meet this mandate. Just to talk about a few, one of the first things we did was we started doing waste characteristic studies by each of our jurisdictions so we could start and say, well, what do we have? What does the waste stream look like today against the mandates, the 50% by the beginning of this next year and then 75% in 2025? What are we looking at today? Where are we at in terms of contamination? That particular research has helped us as we've talked to vendors that have the MRF equipment, the equipment that we showed in the video. Because it's really all about processing those waste streams and getting the organics out, getting the recyclables, and minimizing what actually ends up in the landfill. So doing those studies helped us to know what we actually need. What equipment do we really need? What don't we need? So we're being mindful of costs and just being efficient without being overly, buying equipment just for the sake of it. And then also we investigated various composting technologies. And when we presented last time, we mentioned the Gore composting facility, technology that will ensure it's a proven technology that's new. It's newer. It wasn't around years ago when Jilton had a composting facility. And it's helping us to run our composting facility efficiently because it keeps us in compliance with the California Air and Water Boards. So that's another one of the things we've been doing for the since December. Next slide, please. So I've listed here several benefits that we believe come about by keeping the two-cart system that we currently have, as well as putting in place a high diversion material recovery facility, and I'll just go over a few of those. The biggest one is the mechanical separation of organics and recyclables. You know, everyone wants to do it right, but at the end of the day, we've got to get it right, and the state will be looking at all of our jurisdictions to get that 50% next year and 75% in 2025. And so we truly believe that mechanical separation of the waste stream, pulling out those commodities, is how we're going to get there. And then internally for each of our cities, the benefit is less enforcement on your side. We're going to continue to educate and try to help people get it right, but if they don't, the high diversion material recovery facility in Jilton is the backstop to make sure that we're getting those diversion percentages for our organics. In terms of your residences, you know, it's going to be seamless to them in terms of their collection that they receive weekly. We're going to continue with our one pass truck. We're going to be in your communities and in your neighborhoods one time a week, collecting both the organics cart as well as the black cart. So that, in terms of what does it mean to your community, it's going to be seamless. It's going to be the same. And then another item I like to point out in terms of thinking about your communities and community beautification and whatnot is not going to that three-cart system. You avoid the visual blight of, you know, days when you've got cul-de-sacs and everyone's got their three carts out there. And then what do you do on collection days when the streets aren't cluttered with all those carts? Then everyone's looking at, well, where do I put these, and storing them. So just that's another benefit that we believe, and we've heard from other cities, is really a benefit of not having to deal with that in their communities. Next slide, please. So as we've been meeting since December, you know, we've been thinking obviously about what the city needs and how can we continue to provide that level of service that you've come to expect from Jilton. And what the city needs is the assurance of knowing that there's a sustainable solution in place that's going to ensure that you're meeting your SB 1383 mandates with the state of California. And Jilton's here to make sure that you do that. We're going to do that in several ways. One is provide you the highest amount of organic material diversion through using our equipment to separate your waste stream. As I just mentioned, it's going to be a smooth transition for your residents, because to them it's going to be seamless in terms of what they have to do. Again, with our composting facility, we're permitted to compost 171,000 tons a year at our composting facility, which is more than we would, more capacity than we need to service all of our existing jurisdictions. And so we're giving you that assurance that you have capacity for your waste materials. And then lastly, Jilton is one of only 35 compost facilities in the state that can accept food waste. And as we know, under 1383, food waste is a big component of that. So we're providing you that as well. Next slide, please. Oh, this is when I need the hard hat. Okay, with that in mind, we'll talk about your rates. And so since this bill is so organics driven and it's all about organics, we are breaking out the way we provide our rates. We've got an organics cart rate as well as an MSW, or municipal solid waste trash rate, that we've broken out. So we believe these rates to be competitive, and effective 1/1/22, when you look across, your overall increase would be $11.57 for the 90-gallon container. And that particular rate for the 90-gallon is holding or maintaining your franchise fee of 12.85%. So that is included in the calculation for that rate. And then also we've provided your commercial bin rate on a per yard per week basis at $2.58 increase. So those are your rates.
So that's the number. It's not the only number. What this doesn't show is Jilton has done some work since this presentation was put together and has basically categorized commercial rates as well. Those are very different, kind of depending on the size of the commercial bin, and because there's different amounts of processing that they need to do depending on the size of the bin. So What staff needs this evening is essentially direction on three matters. The first is this discussion, the rest of the matters don't matter at all unless council gives us direction on whether or not you support the concept of moving forward with a high diversion MRF versus some other solution. And in my opinion, well, not in my opinion, the truth of the matter is there's really three options. There's the MRF, there's a 3-can system, and Jilton did some math for me and came up with an estimated cost if we were to do that of about $21 to $22, I believe, additional increase per month. So it's essentially twice this cost. And then the third option is not comply. And there's certainly penalties associated with that, but I'm sure there will be jurisdictions that choose to do that, and they will see what happens. So from staff's perspective, as we look at this, I look at it in terms of providing service to the residents. And so if this is going to be the way that we must live in terms of solid waste moving forward in California, we have a choice. We can provide, in my opinion, a worse service with 3 cans at a more expensive rate, where you sort of force your residents to be super vigilant all the time in how they're separating out their trash, or you provide them a cheaper service that eliminates their need to not make a mistake every so often in putting a chicken bone in the wrong container one way or the other. And so to me, it's not really much of a choice, though our job is to bring you choices. So that's direction request number one. Direction request number two is, given that being the case, we know what the increase looks like, especially for single-family residences. We have started to kind of look around and request quotes from consultants to go through our Proposition 218 process. And so we'd like authorization to initiate that, which would obviously go through the process and would come back to you for final approval when it's complete. Our intention being in advance of January 1. Excuse me. And the final one is that Jilton has requested that, has petitioned a couple of key changes to their contract, a term extension as well as a few others, that I'd like authorization to work on negotiating with Jilton to return to you at either our very next meeting or the one thereafter, so that Jilton knows that the city has some commitment separate of the 218 process to continue forward with Jilton as a partner. And that helps them in working with their financiers to fund this very expensive improvement, as well as sort of reserves our spot as one of their partners moving forward. So those are the three items that I'd like some direction on, and be happy to answer any questions you have, and Tracy probably can answer them as well.
Just a couple of comments. I've been out at Jilton's when you see the green waste being dumped and it's full of metal, plastic. So the user doesn't use it properly. So you're never going to get compliance from the residents. Even if you have a, what is it called, of code enforcement for garbage in every neighborhood, you're still not going to get a complete compliance. And that would be additional city cost, as well as the cost that just to process it with a 3-can. So it's not just a whatever the doubling would be. It'd be much more than that for code enforcement. If you haven't had a chance to go out to see the operation out there, it is extensive, and it is disheartening when you expect residents to comply and they do not. This will also, is there a possibility of having just one bin? Because you're going to separate it anyway. The reason why I'm asking that is that even in your waste bin or your green bin, you're going to have non-compliance.
Right now, the 1383 mandates us to do 2 options: 2 cans with a MRF or 3 cans with no MRF. And like you said, you're still going to have contamination. It's going to have to be ran across the belt if you have a 3-can system. The 1-can would probably be pushing our envelope with the state. We're looking at that for the commercial side, and that's what we're coming out with, because there's a organic bill that's 1826 that tells us that we have to put an organic container along with the trash container in commercial spots that qualify for that. And we're saying, what difference does it make? And that's when, if you look at one of our ones we had earlier, we had a Pac-Man that ate up all those bills that says, at the end of the day, as long as the city is in compliance and reducing the waste stream according to what you're asking us to do from going to landfill, what difference does it make? So that one's still kind of in debate, but the 2-can, we already have it. It's not going to be an extra expense. We have the equipment to do that, so that's not going to be a major burden to the system.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Sure. I attended your first Zoom presentation back in March, and I was very impressed that you were doing this so soon, and I want to applaud your company for taking the bull by the horns instead of just walking away and dumping it all on the cities. Likewise, during that presentation, we got into a very big discussion about cardboard, and I still don't know where to put the cardboard.
Well,
Go ahead.
I appreciate your comments, and yeah, we seen this coming on, and we had a short length of time because it only happened in November of 20, at the end of the November, and so I commend the staff and my staff of jumping on this because we knew we had a football that we needed to get across the goal line, and otherwise we would all be standing here going, what happened? So we take this as a partnership and a team, not just our team at Jilton, Team Riverbank also is
I
making
want you
this
to
happen.
say this on record so I can show it to my wife, because she doesn't believe me when I tell her.
But the
this.
cardboard will go into your organic can, and that's the organic can will be compost. All paper products, milk cartons, egg cartons, anything that comes paper, your junk mail, whatever you put that in your organic, and we're going to compost it.
Thank you.
So, Richard, thank you for that tour at Jilton a couple months back. And I saw firsthand that there really wasn't any compliance with the 2-can system, so going to a 3-can system doesn't really make sense to me. I think with the MRF system, I think the level of services is going to improve. It really is. So I'm in favor of the MRF system. I think authorizing Prop 218, we got to focus, making sure we educate everybody, making sure they understand, like, we don't want to raise your rates, $11.57, but it's state mandated. So education is going to be huge if we move forward, and I absolutely think we should continue negotiations with Jilton. So that's where I stand.
Okay, so I have a question about the trucks. When the trucks empty, they pick up the trash and empty it to the trucks. They don't separate what's in the cans. It just goes into one spot, right? Huh? It does separate it?
Yeah, the truck is what we call a one-pass truck. It's got a divider down the middle of it, and then we call it the flipper panel. So when he dumps the green waste, the flipper panel comes over here, it dumps on this side, and then the packer packs it, and when he goes to dump the trash, it flips over this side and dumps on the other side. It was a truck that it was kind of out there, the concept was out there. We went to manufacturers back in the early 90s and said, hey, we have an ideal, because we were going to 2 cans collection, and then we're going to run 2 trucks up and down your street 104 times a year, or 50, it would be 104 times trips. And we said we need to only go by the house once a week and pick up both cans. And so we've improved that system from the beginning when we started it, and that's the same kind of style of truck. Be more than happy to take you and, show you a tour and give you the pictures because everybody asks us that question. How does that happen? And when you see the two separate tailgates, the divider down the middle, and how the truck works back and forth, it does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, that's the part you don't see from the outside. That's why I asked.
Yeah. Oh,
All
yeah.
you see
From
is the
setting
cans
at the
going
ground,
in.
you're a normal. That's a normal question coming from a customer. We go, how did you do that? And that's why if you ever follow one of our trucks, we have waste side, greenway side, and you can see the split between the tailgates type of thing.
Okay, thank you. I do agree that we do need to go with Prop 218 because this will be a substantial increase, and I think our residents really do need to understand SB 1383 and also understand that there may be future increases down the road. And so it's, again, going to be a huge education. I think we need to get our residents involved with the 218.
Richard, just before you go, two things. First off, just because I can't help it, really funny little tidbit about Richard. When he gave the vice mayor and myself a tour, we were walking through the green waste area, and it's funny because he's the boss, right? And there's this massive operation going around him, and he's telling us about various areas. And he stops for a second, and he looks down, and in this sort of green waste area, there's all this plastic. And he goes, darn it, and he gets and grabs it. Do you remember this? And throws it over to another area. And I just remember thinking about how funny that was because it's this massive space with all of this noncompliance. But he was just doing his part as we were walking through it. But the other part, Richard, I was just hoping that you could speak to a little bit that I think is very important for Riverbank as we're a growing community is capacity. And that moving forward with this sort of sets us in a position where we have capacity regardless of our growth moving forward.
Yes, that's a good question. Capacity for the composting, right now, Riverbank's percentage would probably be we're looking at probably 7,000 tons of material that would be composted a year. Our capacity right now, our first phase of our compost is going to be 30,000, and that would be able to take in the 7 cities that we service that would go into this facility is about 22,000, 28,000. So that first phase, like Tracy said earlier, our whole permit allows us to do 171,000 tons. So plenty of growth area there. And then the same thing with our MRF or separation. We're building it in phases where let's start here, and then we've got 100,000 square foot building, or area to build a building adjacent to our 33,000 square foot facility we have now. And that should have plenty of room for years to come. So grow, if that's what you're wanting to do in Riverbank. And I commend you folks for what you've done out here at the ammo plant. That is a big, big thing. Been here all my life. I'm a local boy, and that was the smartest thing. One of the smartest things you folks have pursued.
If you could just kind of clarify, so for the capacity, so the state's mandating it, is it 75%? When it reaches to 100, there's no concerns there then?
No.
Okay.
No. We have that was one of the things that our team has been meeting weekly, and there's 12 of us, and everybody's been going in different directions, and we're pursuing all those things because we knew we couldn't come to you folks until we knew that we could do it. I couldn't do that. It's not what I do, or not what we do.
Before we move on, are there any public comments, Annabelle?
There is no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments on this item.
Do we have anyone here who wants to speak? Saying none, I believe the direction that the council, you haven't spoken, but I believe the council direction is to continue talks, Sean, for contract negotiations. Determine, take a look at the new rate for a 218 process. And then as you're negotiating whether it's a longer term and how that protects both Chilton and the city, because we're both now forming a longer term partnership. And if you want an agreement signed by the end of September, you have a lot of work to do. But we just relieved you of anything for the LRA. All right. Thank you very much. You have a good team, and we'll be back talking later. Pardon me?
Somebody does have their hand raised.
Okay, can you, well, we're not done yet. Can we get the hand that's raised up?
I'm asking them to unmute. Hello, can you hear us?
Hello? Hello, can you hear us? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm getting echoes.
Evelyn, can you turn your TV off, please? Go ahead. Evelyn, would you please retry?
She's on her phone.
Evelyn, could you just please make your comments? Evelyn, we'll contact you later and get your input, and we'll read them into the record. Any other comments? Thank you.
No, there are no comments.
All right, we're going to proceed to item 10.5, Riverbank Energy Efficiency Project.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So as we've actually discussed this many times over the years, but at the most recent strategic planning session, the council discussed a desire to continue to figure out some new and innovative ways to reduce our carbon footprint, initiate some type of energy efficiency project. We talked a lot about microgrids and how we see those as the wave of the future. And it's sort of a perfect serendipitous moment for a city manager because you brought it up at your strategic planning, and I just so happened to already be doing it. So it looks like I turned it around in 2 weeks. But we've actually looked at this a number of times over the years. We've spoken to a number of companies that provide this similar kind of service, and we've had projects scoped a number of times at a staff level. And frankly, a number of those times the projects were pretty significant in terms of size, scope, and cost, so much so that we were worried from a staff perspective about A, bringing on that much debt, and B, having massive solar arrays in certain public spaces that are already used for recreation. So we sort of put some of those on the back burner, and then just by chance, I had met with Jessica from SiteLogic, who was on the Zoom this evening, and she asked to scope a project for us, and I told her kind of about the problems we'd had in the past, and I asked her to scope something that was a little bit of a smaller project, that almost a pilot version that we could review and reasonably execute. So she did, and initially it included a couple of locations in parks and as well as here near our city offices, and then she also provided an alternative option to add to the project at our wastewater treatment plant. And when we looked at the numbers, it became clear to us that the wastewater treatment component really made a lot of sense. So Jessica is going to step you through her analysis and presentation, and then when she's completed, I'll have a discussion with council about some of the options for consideration and direction we're looking for this evening. So Jessica, we'll go to you now.
All right, great. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me here tonight, everybody. I wish I could be there in person. I had planned on it, and then I didn't plan on getting a little stomach bug. So I figured I would spare the council chambers my potentially contagious virus and just present via Zoom. So I hope this is sufficient. Again, my name is Jessica Ritter. I represent SiteLogic. I work specifically in governmental relations. So I work with cities and counties and special districts. SiteLogic. So I'll try to whiz through this pretty quickly. I know some of these slides can be boring, and I really want to get to the meat of your project. So we'll go through some of these preliminary slides pretty quickly. SiteLogic is the nation's largest privately held energy services company, and we specialize in state, local, and federal government. Some of the issues right now that cities are dealing with when it comes to energy-related items, I know you guys have a lot of issues, but I'm going to focus on energy because that's what I do. Public safety power shutoffs. Now, this is mainly in PG&E territory, SCE and SDG&E, and as you all know, City of Riverbank is kind of split down the middle, half MID, half PG&E. With all of the fires that PG&E has had, they've had to harden their infrastructure, and that has led to some public safety power shutoffs. What does that mean? Well, it means some of your critical facilities could go without power for an extended period of time. And for cities like, for any city really, that's unacceptable. When we're talking about police stations, when we're talking about community centers. And in our program, and with further development, if the city would like to move forward with SiteLogic, we will be investigating further measures to help to hedge against public safety power shutoffs. I would be remiss not to mention some major changes that are coming with PG&E. Again, half of your utility is from PG&E, the other half is from MID. So this net energy metering changes does not affect MID territory, but it does affect your PG&E territories. Net energy metering, so in a nutshell, this is how PG&E stores your credit and gives you value for credits. What a solar credit is it's unused solar energy that's produced during the day. It's backfed into the grid, and PG&E sells it to your neighbors at the time that it's being produced. They give you a credit. It's up to one-to-one value of the energy that you're producing right now. So say, for instance, you pay 25 cents a kilowatt hour. They give you a 25 cents per kilowatt hour credit to your bill for the unused energy. So that's net energy metering 2.0. That's the version we're on currently. Right now, the California Public Utilities Commission, they're hearing cases from the major public utilities, that would be PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E, to make changes to the net energy metering 2.0 program. These changes are not in your favor. These changes are in the favor of the utility. We don't know exactly what that looks like right now, but the legislation that's been submitted so far for review is showing the cut in solar credits up to 75%. We don't know if that's what the CPUC is going to actually vote on and decide on, but we do know that there's going to be a reduction for a number of reasons. So, for customers who have an approved interconnection application with PG&E prior to these changes going into effect, which we assume is going to be sometime around January or spring of 2022, you're grandfathered in for 20 years on the net energy metering 2.0 rates. This is very favorable to solar. In a nutshell, you can see my little kitty there. Please don't wait. That's what I'm telling all of my customers. I would be remiss not to mention this. I wish I could quantify it exactly for you right now. I can't. I will be able to
Jessica?
later on in the year or when the
Jessica?
CPUC is closer to making their decision.
Jessica,
Cities are also facing coronavirus issues still. Even with all the vaccinations, we've got the
I wonder if she can hear us even. Jessica, can you hear us?
Can we mute her?
That are going to help hedge against COVID-19.
Okay. Jessica, I don't know if you can hear us, but we muted you. Could you hear us now, Jessica?
I could hear you the whole time. Could you hear me or no?
We've got a really, really bad echo from you. I'm wondering if it's either your device or if we should have you call in instead.
Oh no. Yes, I can call in for sure. Now I can hear the echo a little bit when I'm speaking. Let me go to here. Go to my email invite. See if I can dial in.
Or if you have a headset, Jessica, that might help.
A headset? I do. Let me see. Let me dial in here. Isn't technology great, guys?
Jessica, we're going to come back to you. We're going to move on and take the next item. And when we get your voice cleared, then we'll come back to you. Thumbs up?
Okay.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 10.6. Update on homeless services and shelter projects.
Thank you, Mayor. I can get through this fairly quickly. So I put this item just on primarily because I wanted to make sure that the community was aware of a lot of the developments that the council is well aware of within our mission to try to provide some services for our homeless and semi-homeless individuals in Riverbank. It's been on our strategic planning for many, many years, and we have had little luck, almost no luck, for the first couple of years receiving any kind of funding or local services and attention in Riverbank, pretty much whatsoever. That issue, as it relates to chronic homelessness, it really came to a head this last year. We had massive camps set up in a couple of our parks and experienced a number of the concerns that some of the other neighboring jurisdictions have that have larger homeless populations. Just by coincidence, and because we have remained very engaged in the local discussion on homelessness at the county, we became aware of a grant opportunity in April. And within about a week, Norma, Marisola, and I threw together a grant, and lo and behold, after a presentation, it was funded, and the city received a total grant request of $497,000 for two specific efforts. The first effort is a full-time street outreach team, not Riverbank employees. We would hire contractors that are experts in this field to help build relationships with the homeless and semi-homeless individuals, trust, and connect those folks with available services that are here locally. In addition, the second portion of that funding is envisioned to be a shelter program here in Riverbank that's not like a traditional shelter that you might see in, for example, downtown Modesto. This is a structured shelter environment that would include educational classes, job training, eventual permanent housing placement, and other parenting classes, addiction resources, and other important resources to help interested homeless individuals work towards exiting homelessness. Very similar in nature to the host house that exists in Patterson, and our concept is to contract with Cambridge Academies, who runs that facility as well. So the city has been awarded that grant funding, and we are awaiting our contract and execution. In the meantime, the City Council authorized a purchase of 3344 Sierra Street, which is a home that's roughly almost 100 years old. It's a yellow home on the corner of Sierra and 4th. And we have closed on that property and are already in the process of working on plans for renovation and some minor upgrades to make it usable. We also are looking currently at a number of other properties for add-on services that may be available. And the concept from the council, as it's discussed it over a number of years, is to create a system which is like a mini continuum within Riverbank. You start at the kind of entry-level shelter where you get the services that are necessary to help you immediately exit the situation that you may be in. The next step, perhaps, may be a transitional facility that you pay some rent to live in, but greatly reduced. And then the final step, of course, is affordable housing that's permanent and is desperately in need in Riverbank. And so we're looking at all of those, and obviously $497,000 is a lot of money, but it's not enough money to continue this effort for a long time. And so another stroke of fortune that we ran into was the mayor happened to have a meeting with Senator Eggman on a variety of issues, and during that meeting he mentioned that we had been working on this homelessness strategy for a number of years in Riverbank, and unfortunately had a tough time getting any funding. And so Senator Eggman said, well, what would it cost to do that program and fund it for a couple of years? And so I helped the mayor. We put together basically a very, very rough proposal and sent it off to the senator's staff. And I personally didn't think much of it after that until late June. We were called by the senator's staff and notified that she had included that in the state of California's budget. And a few weeks later, the governor signed that same budget, which cemented City of Riverbank's funding of $2 million for this project. So it's a very unusual process to getting funding. And I told the mayor, in my career, I've never seen a direct allocation in a state budget like that before. So we're awaiting orders on how we will draw down those funds, but we now have some resources to stand up a program here in town. So we're going to continue to aggressively seek funding and try to stand up this housing continuum within Riverbank, not only to address chronic homeless individuals, but semi-homeless individuals, single mothers with children, and a lot of the other vulnerable subgroups that are out there that you may not see them sleeping on the streets, but they're sleeping in garages, they're sleeping on a friend's couch, and they still qualify as homeless or semi-homeless. So we're doing what we can to the greatest extent possible to make sure that there is no general fund impact to the coordination and contracting for these services and programs, and we're going to continue to push forward. Our goal, and it's a lofty one, is to get the street outreach up and running within the next 30 to 60 days, and to get the shelter program up and running ideally by December 1st. We'd like to get it up before we get into the very, very cold months of December and January and February. So that's our goal, and we will be bringing forward a variety of items here coming forward that push us towards that. And I know City Council's all well aware of this. We spent a lot of time talking about it, but if there's any questions from the community or council, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Sean. Is there any questions of Sean from the council? How about from the community?
There is no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments on this item.
Thank you. Sean, you did a great job. He had to write a 200-word essay. He's not listening. You had to write a 200-word essay to the senator.
That's right. It was
the extent of what he did.
It's the least amount of work for the most amount of funding I've ever done in my career. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I don't have any other comments, so we're going to move on. The 10 point. Boy, this is getting. I thought this was going to be until midnight tonight. Let's slow this down. Item 10.7, reappointment of Kerry Pope to Measure L Citizens Oversight Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Kerry Pope, the Pope, as I call him, has been the City of Riverbank's Measure L Citizen Oversight Committee rep since his initial appointment in June of 2017. His seat is set to expire, and as of the writing of this report, he hadn't quite expressed a desire to continue, but I sent him a text when we were putting it together, and he said that he'd be happy to do it again. It really is a volunteer service that we appreciate very much. It's a super important board. Measure L is such a critical part to keeping this county going, and we must make sure that people are on there to be sure that not only other cities, but the city of Riverbank is following the terms and conditions that we agreed to when that tax was passed. And I believe he's the chair. Is that right, Kerry? So he's the chair of that committee, and from a staff perspective, we enthusiastically recommend that the council reappoint him. Certainly, if either Kerry or the council would like to put this out for larger recruitment, that's fine. But I can just share for you that when we did this in June, we received 2 applications, and one of them was Kerry. So,
okay. Any questions of Kerry? Any questions of Sean? Do we have any public comment? Okay, I'm going to bring it here for a...
Mayor, there's no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments on this item, for the record.
For the record. For the record, I bring it back for a recommendation from the City Council.
I make a motion to approve item 10.7.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Barbara Martinez to reappoint Kerry Pope to Measure L Citizens Oversight Committee, and a second by the Vice Mayor. Roll call, please.
Council members: Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Uribe.
Yes.
Mayor Bryan.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item N8, designation of a voting delegate and alternative to attend the 2021 League of California Cities Annual Conference.
thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As you know, we do this every year. There is one unfortunate individual who has to stay a little late on Friday and cast the vote on behalf of the city. There are 2 resolutions this year that the league will be voting on, which I'll be presenting to you next meeting for council direction on. One is related to sales tax, online sales tax, and one is related to cleaning of railroad right-of-ways. So we just need the council to designate a primary and an alternate, and Councilmember Campbell is not attending this year, so it will need to be one of the 4 of the rest of you.
Any takers?
I will.
Okay, and I'll be the alternate. I think I'm writing the resolutions. I'm on that committee, so that's going to be fun. Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Barbara Martinez. She will be the primary, and second by the mayor for him being the alternate. Is there any public comment on this?
Mayor, there is no one wishing to speak, and we do not receive any written comments on this item.
All right. So I'll bring it back. Any additional comments? Roll call, please.
Council members Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Uribe,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, I'd like to return to item 10.5. Have we reestablished communications with SiteLogic?
Jessica, can you hear us? If you can, you're muted because we can't hear you.
Hi. Okay. Hold on.
Jessica, you're still in the echo mode. To do this justice, would you mind if we continue this item to have you presented in person?
Can you all hear me? Hold on. Now I have to take this off. Mute. Can you guys hear me?
Okay. All right, Jessica, we're going to have Sean give the presentation. You're still in the echo mode. So if you can just listen to what Sean says and then step on him if he goes over. Shake your head, yes.
Good.
Okay.
So I'm going to put on my SiteLogic hat for a moment here. So you have the presentation in front of you. I don't, Jessica, if you want to go to the, let's fast forward to the first solar solution at the wastewater plant. And while she's doing that, what I'll say while she's doing that is what we got some of, but not all of, was part of the motivation to move forward with this project in short order, which she articulated, is that the CPUC is considering a very significant change to net metering policy that, if approved, would take place next year. If the city is able to get this project rolling and file our paperwork for this before probably about December, we will be grandfathered into the current, much more generous policy for 20 years. And so in my opinion, if we're going to do it, now is the time. Jessica, as I mentioned earlier, had scoped 4 different locations. The first location is this ground-mounted as well as carport structure. It's much larger than a carport, but very large shade structure at the solar wastewater plant. This is designed to offset 655 kilowatts of power and produce over 1 million in the first year. We can go to the next slide. The next slide, which will come up a sec, is the community center. The goal for SiteLogic on any of these projects is to try to offset 80% of the power usage. That's the sweet spot. It's the place where your project pays off in the best possible way, and you're not overproducing power that you're not using. And so one of the questions I got was, well, why didn't we just put covered parking across all of the parking spaces? Well, that would be great, but it is really unnecessary for the community center power generation. And the other question I got was, well, what about the teen center? The teen center was built as a LEED certified building and is already very efficient as it is. So that's the community center. The next project is the police station, and that is covered parking as well. Very needed. The chief and his deputies' cars sit out there in the sun 365 days a year, and so this certainly would provide a side benefit of covered parking. It also offsets 80% of the police department power in their building, which is a big power user for us because it's a 24/7 operation and it's a fairly large building as well. If you go to the next slide, this is Wharton Park. Wharton Park is, if you don't know, is located just off of Terminal and on the east side of town. And building to the north side of the park is a very large water well that we have, and that well serves our system like like all of our wells do. The idea that we had that was a very difficult one for this part of the project was, how do you put a solar array in a park that's usable? And so we tried to pick an area, and Sue Fitzpatrick has signed off on this and is happy with the design, that we felt was not really usable from a sports perspective or from a rec perspective, but just was green space, and look at it from the perspective of what could we do to provide some shaded area here. There's no picnic gazebo here. There's no covered area whatsoever for people using this park. And so we figured that this could provide a nice shaded area for summer days when people are at the park, or they could use it for parties or other events there. And so our idea would be that if council wants to move forward with this, we would notice the surrounding community that live adjacent to this park and get their feedback on the project, because obviously a lot of these homes face this park, but we feel in general that there will probably be support for it. So here are the financial components. If we were to move forward with the project, and I'll ask you to look at the left or the right-hand side of the screen. If we were to move forward on this project before ARPA was ever even thought of, unless we decided to use utility funds to fund some of the utility components or general funds to fund some of the others, what you normally would do is you would finance it. And the terms that they're seeing in the market currently are what you see there, 3% interest rate typically. Sometimes you can get it a little lower. I think Jessica mentioned that Oakdale was in the 2.7% range, and 20-year term. Okay. The lifespan of these solar arrays are 30 years, minimally. Their engineers have shared that they could easily, they'll be slightly less efficient, but they could run 35 and 40 years if they're maintained appropriately. And that is part of this agreement as well. So what I want to get to this evening is without any ARPA contribution, if we financed all of this, the cash flow, which is located in your packets, looks fairly ugly under that scenario. We actually end up paying cumulatively well over $1 million more than we would without the project over cumulatively up to year, I think about 20 or 15. And then it flips and you start to, that's essentially when your loan is paid off. And for the last 10 or so years of the project, your net savings ends up at about $6.5 million, which is good, but it makes it a little bit more difficult in that interim period where you're paying off this debt. The other option, which is to your left, is a much more aggressive option, which under ARPA, the water and sewer portions of this project, so Wharton Well and the wastewater plant, can be funded out of ARPA. There already seems to be some precedent for this. It's happened in other jurisdictions that have figured out that technically it's a water project or a wastewater project. The value to that is that you reduce your financing costs, and over a 20-year term at 3% interest rate, that ends up being a lot of money. So you can see that at the very bottom, you immediately start out with a positive cash flow of $100,000 in net savings. That's across all of the projects. And that your 30-year net is $11.8 million. So that's a pretty significant payback. If you go to the next slide, this next slide I think is really neat. It just sort of indicates what sort of environmental benefits would be resulting of us producing 1.5 million kilowatt hours of electricity annually. So I won't go through all of these, but if you'd care to look through those, you can kind of see that it has a real life impact. And we can go to the next one. This is.
Still have an echo?
Try again, Jessica.
Do I still have an echo?
Oh no, that's better.
Oh, okay.
You want to take over?
Me and said that she may have fixed it, and I didn't want to leave you on your own trying to figure out this slide, Sean.
Okay, go right ahead.
Oh, great. So if everybody can hear me, then I apologize for technical difficulties. This is just the day that we're living in now. Speaking of the technical things, though, our energy management services are absolutely a technical side of this program. And what we like to say is you can't manage what you don't measure. Cities and counties will implement these really expensive energy projects, but without somebody behind it to manage it and measure the productivity of your arrays, you can really start losing a significant amount of savings year over year. So we've developed an energy management services agreement that we tack on to every single energy project. So it's built into the cost of your project here. And what it does is it manages and monitors every single meter at the city. And we create this really friendly dashboard that is web-based, so anybody can access it at any time. And it shows exactly how much energy is being used at each site and what that equates to in dollars. And then when your arrays are up and producing energy, there's also a slide there that shows how much productivity they have and what that actually equates to in dollars for the city. So this is a really interesting and important part of an energy project is managing your energy. For example, City of Santa Cruz hired us to be their energy managers. And in just the first week, we were able to change a rate schedule and save them $50,000 a year. They were just on the wrong rate schedule and they didn't know, and nobody was monitoring it or managing it. So that's a good example. That's probably our best example. I don't know if I could save you $50,000 with the rate schedule change, but there are some hidden things that you don't know about unless you have some experts looking at it for you. So Sean, that would have been a difficult one for you to try to grab on your own. Let's see. Okay, our California presence, obviously, California is the largest state for us in energy services because we pay the highest rates for electricity here. So we have multiple offices throughout the state. I also live in the Valley. I'm not very far from Riverbank. Our corporate office is in Sacramento. So you guys are kind of right in between where I'm at in Fresno County and where our corporate office is in Sacramento. We have a major national presence as well. Our major headquarters corporate is in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we also are in multiple states throughout the United States, and we're growing every single month. We're growing. Some other current and past energy projects, these are either in development or they're in construction. Of course, your next door neighbors, the city of Oakdale, what a fantastic project, very similar to your project. They had a lot more HVAC. I think they had 28 HVAC units getting replaced at their city and their project, but they also had water, they also had solar at their wastewater treatment plant and multiple other sites throughout the city. So as a good comparison, Oakdale is very similar to your project as well. And then, of course, the key features of working with SiteLogic. I think Sean did a really great job mentioning it in his staff report. We are contractors, so we're not just a team of engineers and architects, but we actually want to build the project. So we have complete control over what's going on with your project, and it also helps us to keep costs low. We're also a very conservative company, so when I design projects and when my team designs these projects, we design them with your budgets in mind. I'm not going to come at you with a $14 million project or a $20 million project, but if you have need for $20 million worth of energy, then we do a phased approach. And we make sure that it's funded in ways that the city can actually afford. We are manufacturer agnostic, so we don't manufacture any HVAC units, light bulbs, solar panels. So if the city has a preference on equipment, we can definitely use that equipment. We provide the financial solutions, as Sean had mentioned. And of course, the most important, we provide sustainability for your communities. And I know that's important to many members of this council. Oh, and of course, our guarantee. So we guarantee all of our workmanship and savings. So that helps to hedge the risk for any city that's looking into an energy project. If you have one company saying, well, we're going to guarantee you're going to save, let's say, $100,000 a year, well, you want to make sure that they're ready to back up that number because that's an important number for you. If you're expecting that money to come back, then you want to make sure and guarantee that that money is coming back. So we also provide that as well. Next steps, Sean went over that. Letter of agreement. The letter of agreement is basically a litmus test, right? It's going to prove to both SiteLogic and to the city that both of our organizations are committed to this project. So we've developed this entire program at our risk so far. But in order to make this a shovel-ready project, ready to construct, we have a lot more engineering to do. And that has a dollar amount attached to it. If the city were to not move forward with the project after SiteLogic invested a lot more engineering time and resources to developing this project, then we would hope that the city would compensate us for our time. This is a standard agreement, and it's included in your agenda packet. It has not, I don't believe the city attorney has reviewed it yet, but it is the same agreement that Oakdale signed, and it's been reviewed by their attorney as well. So, so you can be assured that it's a fair agreement. This is our project timeline. If everything goes well, we can move through this timeline fairly quickly. There are going to be some changes to scope as council has time to sit and think about if you want to contribute ARPA funds, how much ARPA funds you want to contribute. Sean did a great job mentioning the ARPA fund contribution. This is one-time federal money you're probably never going to get again. And I can't think of another investment of your ARPA funds that's going to pay you back $100,000 a year over the life of the project, $11 million. But it's still a lot of money, and you don't have to contribute all of the ARPA funds. We can make some adjustments to the cash flow to where you still have a really good net savings every year, and you can contribute minimal ARPA funds. So that's some financial negotiations that we can definitely do if the city decides to move forward. All right, I think that's it. Sean, thank you for taking over and presenting my project for me. I really appreciate it. I'm here to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Jessica. So council, the three items that we'd like some direction on this evening is provide some direction to staff as to, do you like the concept? Do you want to see us move forward? That's A. If the answer to that is yes, what we will do is I'm going to work with Jessica, maybe even for the very next meeting, and we're going to give you a suite of options as it relates to ARPA funding. My personal opinion is that $3.8 million of ARPA is an awful lot of our allocation, and I know council has a variety of ideas for that funding, and so it may be that we want to use some, but what I would do is sort of work with her on getting you cash flow statements to review at like $1 million ARPA, 1.5 million, 2 million, and so on, so you could pick the sweet spot. Secondly, I'm working with the city attorney. He's reviewing the letter of agreement. The letter of agreement, just so we're clear, is SiteLogic has taken us to this point in gratis. And basically what they're saying is, moving forward, we're going to commence detailed design documents. And if, for example, a portion of the project just doesn't work practically, there's some engineering problem, or it's more expensive than we had anticipated, whatever, that isn't a trigger for us having to pay this $82,000 fee. The $82,000 fee is designed that we get through the completion of the process. We're ready to go to contract to build this, and the city council says, we've changed our minds. Because at that point, they've invested a lot of time, effort, and resources in the design. So that's the exposure. But if we like direction from the council on having the attorney develop that letter so that we can execute that to move to the next phase. And that really, actually, I thought there was three items, but really it's only two. It's those two items, and then we will have to return to you at a future meeting so we can get the financing strategy like really clear on how you'd like to move forward.
All right, I have questions. Anybody have questions before I?
Go ahead.
All right. First off, there is $44.5 million available for microgrid that is now available and you have to have your application in by November 9th. I'd like to see if we move forward that we apply for some of those, and they go from $2 million to $7 million per project. There's some criteria on that, and some of maybe it won't affect all of the projects that we took a look at today. But for the community center, I'd like to have greater than an 80%. And the reason for that is that in the past, we have opened the doors for those coming down from the hill because of fires near the Sonora area. And what I would like to do is be able to have the sustainable, as they call it, island functions. So if we have a battery backup with solar, that you can power the community center off the grid, and that would be part of your microgrid. And that could be favorable, and that cost could go immediately to a grant. And the other ones are, the criteria are 80% of your carbon footprint has to be reduced. Well, if we take each one of those, if they can meet the 80 percentile, we might be able to have a greater cost associated with that. And using grant money, because we all have different ideas on how to use ARPA. And although using ARPA, you put down as $5+ million, you'd get that back in a 30-year period, because you make over 11, almost 12 million. But for the other side, it was like 6 million. So you just add the 5 million that you're going to put in, you get back. But it's 30 years down the road, where it'd be probably 60% the value of the 5 million you put in. So I'd like to see us move forward, but I would like to see us at the same time applying for grants, especially if we can get 2 million out of it, and then go for funding ARPA and trade ARPA money if we get the grant money. Make sense?
It does.
Okay, now, I've always been strong on microgridding, and I'm glad you came around. I was not aware of the PUC changing the rules again, but they'll only change it in their favor. So this is something a little bit more urgent than what I would have liked to done, a more logical step. Not that this is not logical, is an expedited steps, and I hope we get enough information so the council can make a good, firm decision when it comes time for the contract approval in October. Because we have had bad luck before, and it wasn't site logic, but we don't want to have bad luck again. So we need guarantees in that too.
So I'll go next. Hi, Jessica. Nice to see you again. So, Mayor, I agree with you. I think we should be applying for all the microgrid grants we can get. Just to note on the wastewater treatment plant, I just want to be sure that the carport, that the clearance is high enough as we're working on other infrastructure projects, like if we're going to tertiary, and we're going to be having outdoor wiring, and we're going to require some type of shade structure that kind of ties in there. For that, I also want to move forward. I don't think 3.8 million of ARPA funding needs to go there. I think I'm more around the $1 million, and hoping we can get some of this other grant funding that's out there. So I say we move forward, but let's take a look at some of those financial options and see what makes the most sense. Maybe some other doors will open for us as well.
I agree with both the mayor and the vice mayor with what they're saying.
Shaking head, is that a yes?
Yes.
Darlene?
Well, I always have something to say.
I know. Important.
I was just looking at some of these carports and where we want to put them, especially the one for the community center. It looks like it's taking up space some of the park plan, so I'd like to move it over a little bit, but I think it's a good idea to have it there, and then perhaps we might be able to heat up some of the pool also with the energy savings or connection there for the solar panels. And then I'm hoping that some of this lighting that we need throughout the city at some of our facilities would help. We can use that energy savings there too and brighten up some of the dark areas.
And on that, I'd like us to take a close look when we're at the conference, because there's vendors that have standalone lights with solar, and I believe that we could achieve that, kind of like what we did in front of the movie theater.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, that's guidance, and what I'd like to have any public input on this item.
There is no one wishing to speak on this item, and we did not receive any written comments.
And Mayor and Council, just so I'm clear, I have your direction on the grants and on the additional analysis. Are we also okay moving forward with the letter of agreement so we can keep the design going?
Yes.
Everybody okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I do want to take a look at a standalone for the community center for the purpose of actually using it as a refuge for emergencies.
Mr. Mayor, may
Yes.
Hi, we have actually looked into the microgrid at the community center, and it is a viable location. It will require us to almost double the amount of solar panels that we have there to keep your batteries charged sufficiently, but it is a very good viable option for a microgrid.
And we like the idea of covering more spaces with solar panels.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping too that this will also help with the expansion of our wastewater treatment plant and the capacity that we need for future development.
Yeah, it's a critical component just in terms of trying to control the cost of powering this new plant. It was actually one of my first questions to Michael because my concern was we might be overbuilding the solar and perhaps maybe our new plant doesn't need that much power usage, and he laughed at me and said, no, it's going to need a lot more. So this will help.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you, staff. Now to proceed to item 11.1. Jessica, thank you.
Thank you all.
Item 11.1, staff comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to say a couple quick things. First off, I dropped by the community barbecue that the Vice Mayor and Chief put on at Castleberg on Saturday. Had a really good time. The kids ran around for about an hour and a half. We put together a little video of the day, and I think Gabby has posted that up on our social media, so if anybody wants to check it out, go check it out. There's some a lot of video of Luis, and then there's a sped up video of Darlene giving out snow cones that are pretty good. The other component I just want to mention real quickly is that I get a lot of questions from council and the community about what's going on with Centennial. I assure you there's a ton of work going on in the Centennial. We have a variety of logos we're working through, really great plans that have come up with the committee, and we've committed to bringing you sort of our draft plan to this next meeting, just knowing that the committee's still tweaking and changing and is going to making some recommendations, and they know that the council will receive that and slice and dice it how you all want it. So that is forthcoming. And it's very exciting. There's a lot of interest and a lot of excitement in people getting involved. And then finally, I know I do this periodically, but just because this was a big night from a project perspective, I just really want to thank the team. Behind the scenes, a lot of the things that the council doesn't see as it relates to the formation of this agenda. You know, you get all of the work done, and then I sit down with Annabelle, and we talk about how are we going to put this into an understandable form, not so much for the council because you all are aware of it, but for the community. How is it reasonably readable? These documents are very long. There are dozens of exhibits. We have to make sure that every little thing is correct, and inevitably on agenda prep day or publishing day, we find a problem or a little issue that needs to get fixed and solved. So the only reason we're able to move forward with that is because we have really good people that really know what they're doing, and whether it be Norma with all of the technology, Annabelle in the city clerk's office, Maricela and Gabby and the rest of the team and admin that really kind of help support these efforts finally when we get it to the very end. Because once I have a final project to bring you, I breathe a sigh of relief, and then I get emotionally very concerned because I didn't realize that we have to somehow present this complicated issue. So just a big thanks to everybody, because if it was me putting it together in the agenda, it would not look even halfway understandable. So appreciate you all very much, and we're looking forward. One last thing I didn't get a chance to mention is when we are clear to sign the agreement, we will have a signing ceremony, and the council obviously invited Ametis and their private partners, the staff and the community, and we'll probably do it out the plant, and we'll do photos and the whole deal, because you can only do it once. So thank you very much to council, and good evening. So sorry, Donna, did you have something to say?
No, we just turned them on so that they could see they're here.
Okay, got it.
Hi, Donna. We were going to make you talk, but Sean said no. Okay, for council comments, Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes, I know we moved on from the Site Logic project, but I was excited to see Warren Park be included in this. I want to make sure we do what we can to reach every resident, if that part of the city. I attended the Afghan Community Town Hall and was asked to speak a few words, and I got the sense from the council that we are supporting the refugees and what's going on, and if we didn't, I'm sorry. I spoke on all of our behalves to the community of I would say about 70 people from the Afghan community who were concerned and had questions, and I think wanted to just hear the support from electeds and from our communities that we're here to support them. So really briefly, I let them know that we're here to support them, and World Relief did mention that they want to start exploring options for refugees to potentially come to Riverbank. So we'll have to see what the options are, at least to support verbally if there are not options currently. But that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Campbell.
I'd just like to remind everyone that we are in a drought, and it's a lot worse drought than the last one that we had, and it's going to continue for a while. And if it goes into the winter and we get to next year, there'll probably be a lot more things that will happen because of that. In the meantime, we need to start doing drought control now. Start thinking about maybe converting your lawns over to less water with plants and whatnot. And any way you can save water, do it now, because it is critical, and it's going to get worse as the winter comes. And if we continue, it'll even be worse than that. The other thing I'd like to say is that on September 13, the Riverbank Historical Society is going to have a presentation honoring the 100 years of the former library, which is now the museum building. And I believe the presentation starts at around 5 p.m. at the museum. And you are welcome to come and help honor it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
I want to thank the community members that hosted and those that attended our National Night Out events, and of course the chief and of police services and his staff. I enjoyed our strategic planning session, and it was a good planning session, and I look forward to seeing our city move forward. I attended the League of California Cities Park and Rec webinar that was today, and there are several questions about mandated vaccinations for the staff, contracted personnel, and sports events. I also attended our Shaw meeting for the homeless, representing our city, and I informed them of the plans that we have to address our homeless population. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I also want to thank the chief, everybody that was involved with the barbecue event that we had this weekend, the Culinary Tactical Unit, Darlene's organization, the Central Valley Community Resources, Sean, all the volunteers. I mean, they really put in a lot of work. It was a very successful event. Those kind of events the community really remembers, and I look forward to doing another event with you next year, Chief. There's going to be a picnic at the park on September 14th. For the homeless. It's going to be hosted by the Riverbank Homeless Ministry, where Sean and I will be discussing the transitional housing project directly to our homeless. I think that's important, that we kind of, give them the information directly. They hear it from us. So the homeless ministry is also looking for donations, specifically water. Most of our homeless is down by the river, and they're having a hard time accessing, potable water or drinkable water. So if there's anybody interested in helping, please reach out to either me or the city. Thanks.
Thank you. Tonight's agenda, great accomplishments, Sean. This MDA was very tedious and involved, and some of it was coming to loggerheads and trying to unjam a couple of items. And I appreciate being called in when I had to, but mainly, Sean, in your thousands of hours. As we move forward with this MDA, the next thing is the transfer or conveyance of the property from the Army to us. Secretary Ray Hauser came to Riverbank last week to talk with me about the plans, and one of them is trying to separate the water issues with the land issues so we could do a faucet on the land and not tie it in with the water. We have to get together with the DTSC and move that forward, but as soon as we get the requirements from the Army, then we can go to that next level. And there was 2 dates. If we can separate the water from the land, it'll be June of 22. If we do not, it'll be June or later of 23. Sooner is better in my ideas. So we have a lot of work to do between then and starting from now. Not only did we have an MDA, but if we can start the building with Ametis in the next several years, we'll start our greening out there with Ametis, Circulus, and some of the other companies that are going out there. Okay. With that, I think I'll stop, although I want to, again, compliment the staff. Sean, you have a great team, and I'm glad you're leading them, and they're taking your lead, and we're moving forward in a lot of complicated items. And I'm sorry that some of them aren't witnessing this, but I believe we're the only city in this region moving as rapidly as we are in a controlled manner. Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to go to item 12, closed session items. The public will have a limit of 3 minutes to comment on closed session items as set forth in the agenda and prior to the board recessing to closed session. Item 12.1, liability claims. At this point, Annabelle, do I need to read all of that?
Read the titles?
Just the titles. I don't need.
Just the titles, fine.
Okay. Item 12.2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. 2 potential cases. Item 12.3, conference with real property negotiators. Item 12.4, conference with real property negotiators.
Mayor, it might help to say who's negotiating. And
you told me I didn't have to.
You can skip the reference to the government.
Okay, yes. Okay, there's item 12.3 is the city Riverbank property 3300 Stanislaus Street. Negotiator Sean Scully for the city. Property negotiator Stanislaus Housing Authority on the negotiation price, term of payment, or both. For item 12.4, conference with real property negotiators. Property is 3718 Sierra Street, Riverbank. Agency negotiator Sean Scully, city manager. Property negotiator Linda Tucker on the negotiation price, term of payment, or both. Do we have any public comment prior to closed session?
There is no one wishing to speak, and we did not receive any written comments on any of the items.
Okay, this meeting is now
Recess to close session.
recessed to closed session. Thank you.
The host would like you to unmute your microphone. You can press *6 to unmute. You are unmuted.
We'll reconvene the City Council LRA Board meeting. Report from closed session on item 13.1 on item 12.1. Liability claims. The City of Riverbank rejected by a vote of 5-0 the claim. Item 13.2 on item 12.2. Conference with legal counsel. Anticipated litigation. Direction has been provided to staff. Item 13.3 for item 12.3, conference with real property negotiators. Agency negotiator Sean Scully and property negotiator Stanislaus Housing Authority. Direction has been provided to staff. Item 13.4 on item 12.4, conference with real property negotiators on 3718 Sierra Street. Negotiator Sean Scully, property negotiator Linda Tucker. Direction has been provided to staff. Our next regular council meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 14th at 6 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.